So this is another pre-election gem from Rachel Maddow. And Rachel's decline has been one of the saddest to me because I was a huge Maddow fan back in the day. But this kind of goes back to the manufacturing consent thing right before the election. All these articles and stuff come out, like, people come out, Trump's a Nazi, you can't vote for him, it's going to end democracy. But then they also do this thing where they're like, oh, there's a secret result that shows that Kamala's about to win it. And I don't know if this helps that much, because I think it kind of like suppresses vote. A lot of her people who might have ran out to vote for her, like, oh, well, she's going to win anyway. But check this out. This is great.
In which there are good polls. And particularly where in some states there is a gold standard pollster who appears to be unaffected by larger dynamics that are making everybody whine about the polls. And the reason those individual pollsters get the gold standard designation is both because of their proven sound methodology, but also...
So this is a quick random sidebar, but I actually in high school, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out here who did this, worked for a polling company. I worked for a survey research company when I was in high school called the Worthland Group. Richard Worthland was a guy who worked with Reagan. So we did market research. And it was at that time that I kind of learned the reality of polling. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm so cynical about it. But I'm going to give you a really clear example. And I think this is interesting. One of my little sidebar stories. It's actually really interesting. So this was in Utah. And we did surveys for like GM, General Motors. I literally would like go into work high after school and be sitting on the phone with like a General Motors employee while they ranted about how it's all Chiefs and no Indians and they have 10 managers and stuff. But we did a survey at one point, and the client of the survey was anonymous, not anonymous, but classified, or we weren't allowed to know. The survey was clearly for the LDS Church, and the whole thing was push polling. And the reason I say that is when we started doing this this survey, there were very specific instructions on how we had to read the wording. And every time we talked about the Mormon Church, we had to read out in its entirety the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So anytime in that survey, and there were multiple times, so it's like you get to the end of this 10-minute questionnaire and you've just been saying the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, over and over and over again. And then one of the last questions is, now, based on what you know, do you think that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a Christian church? And, 9 out of 10 respondents were like, yeah, I think they are. And so the Mormons got the data they wanted from that survey that like, yeah, people believe that the Mormon Church is a Christian church. So they could go out to the press and feed that out and say like, yeah, see, people know we're Christians. We're the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Anyway. So I have on the ground experience with polling.
Also because of their track record over time in that particular jurisdiction. And the prototypical example of a gold standard poll is the Iowa poll done by Ann Selzer, by J. Ann Selzer in Iowa. The polls that she produces for the Des Moines Register in Iowa, specifically the final Iowa polls she does before each major election, her polls are known for their uncanny predictive accuracy. This is Ann Selzer's recent track record. I mean, what you see here is in each election year, what her final poll said the result would be in Iowa. Next to that is what the actual result was on election day. And as you can see, if you look at the Senate and presidential races since 2012, her poll has accurately predicted the winner of the Senate and presidential races in Iowa within 1 or 2 points every time. There was a governor's race in 2018 where things went a little bit gang-a-glay, but in Senate and presidential races, you have seen Ann Selzer basically as a living bullseye. And that's why lots of people had strong reactions when the Des Moines Register Ann Selzer Iowa poll was posted last night. This is that poll, and it is a shock result. It shows Kamala Harris ahead of Donald Trump by 3 points in Iowa. And the reason this is consequential to our psyche is that if this is accurate, and if anybody is accurate, it's likely to be Ann Selzer in the Iowa poll. If this is accurate, this implies that Harris might be winning Iowa. 3 points, granted, is within the margin of error here, but it's 3 points. Iowa is a state where neither campaign has spent any time or resources since the primaries. They don't have a ground game there. They don't have ads up there. Trump won Iowa by 8 points last time and 9 points the time before that. Nobody thinks of it as a swing state. A Democratic presidential candidate hasn't won Iowa since Barack Obama in 2012. But here she is with a lead. In addition to that top line lead, the poll's internal numbers show dynamics in terms of women voters, and particularly older women voters, that could, again, if they hold, have really major implications beyond Iowa. I mean, the Iowa poll shows that women who are political independents favor Harris by nearly 30 points. Women over the age of...
Of course, the cope is strong. And, you know, I was waiting for all kinds of stuff from all kinds of insane people to begin, like, you know, once the results and the tallies were finalized. But this, more than anything, is what I was expecting from our good friend Keith Olbermann. So check this out. Here's Olbermann's cope. Extreme.
On the
cope.
Wednesday Countdown podcast, Russia has committed an act of war against this nation. We were attacked last night. Regardless of the outcome of the presidential election,
I heart feces.
as certainly as if Russia had bombed and not merely threatened with a terrorist attack.
I heart
32 polling stations in one Georgia county, many in another Georgia county, between them the home of 1/4 of the entire black population of the state of Georgia,
I heart
and also
feces.
in the states of Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Arizona. Russian interference in this country's elections dates back to at least 2016. It has been proven time and time again. And at times, the government of this country has buried the information, even though it was available in plain sight.
So there's that copium.
Now, I'll confess that I have licked Joe Biden's dick all the way through since 1975.
So after all of this, of course, too, progressive grifters came out and complained. You know, it's so obvious when you see people like Kyle and Crystal.
Because what are you going to do? Like choose Trump? Like that's right wing.
You know, we've talked about this so many times, but it's just gotten to a level where it's absolutely pathetic, where you can tell exactly. They're like, oh yeah, you know, we're kind of progressive, and then as soon as it gets to the election, they're like, oh, you gotta vote for Harris because Trump is the devil. Oh, they're such fakes. But of all of those examples of people getting it really wrong and having to suffer for it, this is probably my favorite. And this is, of course, not a guy that I really think about much, but why does anyone watch guys like David Pakman and Sam Cedar and Crystal and Kyle to begin with, when you could just tune into any shitlib bullshit like MSNBC or Pod Save America and get the exact same takes? Maybe Crystal and Kyle kind of like dress it up a little more in like progressive shit. Like, oh yeah, see, I'm kind of progressive. Whatever, really.
When I woke up this morning, we had lost 5,000 YouTube subscribers compared to where we were last night. Now, the first thing I thought was, is this
I haven't even ever had 5,000 YouTube subscribers. So, hey, I've only been doing this for like a year and a half, but
glitch? We've been on YouTube for 15 years or something like that. And subscribers always just go up. They just never go down. They go up. Is something wrong with my channel? Is someone attacking my channel? What's going on? So I started texting. And I texted Brian.
Is someone attacking my channel? I wonder. I've seen the ratings and the median viewership age for MSNBC and CNN. It's like 70 years old. I would be curious to see these guys' stats, like what their core audience is. I mean, I'll tell you, mine is like, I think it skews mostly male. but it's like 30 plus basically, if I really look at the numbers, like if I'm looking at the analytics. I would be curious, like when you're a guy like David Pakman who has like millions of subscribers or whatever, I wonder what his demo looks like, his core demo actually looks like.
Tyler Cohen, and I texted Tyler Cohen, Brian Cohen, and Brian Tyler, all of them. I texted all of them.
All the Cohens, Michael Cohen.
I texted Luke Beasley and Farron Cousins and Sam Cedar. And
that is like a list of veritable brunch lib shit balls. Bread tube. That's like the bread tube bakery he just listed right there. Welcome to the bread tube bakery with David Pakman, Sam Cedar, some other cunts, the leftist mafia.
Every single one of our channels since last night is hemorrhaging subscribers. What is it that is going on? Here is a graphic. As you can see, subscribers just go up, up, up.
Here's what's been going on. You spent the last 4 years telling everyone to vote for the Democrats, and they finally woke up after that well-deserved electoral spanking.
Up, and they are down. It is not just YouTube subscribers. We are seeing record cancellations of paid memberships. Record cancellations. These are the people that keep the show running. Now, for a moment, I thought, if it's just YouTube, maybe YouTube is purging people who are inactive subscribers. And once a year, usually YouTube does this, and you see a little decline. And then numbers.
Schadenfreude here. I love that he's like detailing all of it too. He's like going into like, it's not just YouTube. We're losing followers everywhere. They know we're frauds.
Let's go back up. They're not doing it. They're not doing it. And if that were the case, we wouldn't be seeing paid membership cancellation.
It's almost like all the copium we were selling before this giant electoral spanking didn't work out the way we had intended. And the people that subscribed because of that copium canceled their subscriptions when they realized they were just being lied to, like they are when they tune into CNN or MSNBC.
On the website. So now I understand what is going on. It's terrifying, but it is happening. A lot of people.
By the way, guys, support Ukraine. Ukraine is so important. We need to support Ukraine because Putin is so terrible.
They're checking out. I heard anecdotally from a couple dozen people who said, David, I just can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. I'm checking out. I'm out. And the reason that this is terrifying, not only because it puts everybody in left-wing media, it terrifies us because our instinct is the opposite of what the right does, and we will get crushed if this is the way we respond to a defeat. The right wants us not to exist.
You just did get crushed, and you just detailed how crushed you got to us.
The right wants to decimate independent progressive media. And so when I lose 5,000 subscribers...
Okay, again, how can these people say this shit with a straight face? How can these people say this shit with a straight face after the last several years? The right wants to decimate indie media. Indie media just elected the president, you dipfuck.
And Brian loses thousands, and Ring of Fire loses thousands, and everybody's losing thousands of subscribers. Understand that when the right loses...
So it's funny because, I don't want to keep listening to this. That's enough of douchebag here. But this happened to people like us a long time ago, right? Do you remember the first Bernie cycle, the second Bernie cycle, when Crystal and Kyle and TYT and all these cunts were trying to tell us to vote for Joe Biden? That's when I tuned out. That's when Jimmy Dore, took off because he was the voice of people like us who were like, fuck the Democrats. And I don't know why it took so long. I guess the Trump derangement thing worked really well for long enough. But I remember, when Trump won, I flashed back to this, and it's probably a piece I did a long time ago, but Tim Pool was in Iowa during the Republican primaries. And there was a kid who got interviewed at a Vivek Ramaswamy event. And the kid his question was like, look, I like you, Vivek, but I need to vote for Trump because I want to show the establishment that what they're doing to him is not okay. And I think that was kind of the general sentiment of the country when you look at it, outside the brainwashed shit lib ecosystem. People could see what was going on and they went, oh, fuck. Like, even if I don't like Trump, we can't allow this shit to be happening because it's going to happen to the left next. So just sticking with that, here's what this is what Nancy Pelosi said about the election process, the nomination process.
You said you wanted a sort of an open primary if Joe Biden stepped down. Did you change your mind because you saw all the excitement around Kamala Harris?
No, I didn't change my mind. We had an open primary and she won it. Nobody else got in the race because she was politically astute. And
you had reportedly said you wanted a sort of an open.
So again, it's who buys that shit? One last little piece of liberal cringe leading up to the election before we move on. This was one of the biggest things for me that it makes me want to, it makes me have violent thoughts. Let's put it that way. When you think about guys like Paul Krugman, who sit in like a marble stone office and corner office of the New York Times and write articles about how the economy is great and the people paying $12 for a dozen eggs are just tripping. I think that was kind of one of the biggest things that lost the Democrats big time because they're just so out of touch with the reality on the ground. So this is Glenn Greenwald kind of commenting on Chris Hayes, or I would call him Keith Olbermann III. It's like there's Keith Olbermann, then there's Keith Olbermann II, which is Rachel Maddow, and then there's Keith Olbermann III, which is Chris Hayes here.
More good economic news today with a new inflation report coming in better than expected. Prices rose just 3% in June annualized compared to the same time last year. You see that curve, that up and that down? That's what you like to see. That is the...
Here's the graph that shows, this is basically what he's saying right here. I love this. Prices didn't go up as much this year as they did last year, and you should be happy about that, even though you're still paying $12 for a carton of eggs.
Lowest increase we've seen since March of 2021. That black line means that inflation is going down. Now, another key metric shows that wages are continuing to rise faster than inflation. This is like the most important thing. Average hourly earnings rose 0.4% from May to June compared to inflation at 0.2%. And compared to last year, wages are up a strong 4.4%. We have a lot of data showing that in many respects, our economy is doing astoundingly well. But Americans, on the whole, are just not feeling it. A recent AP poll found...
Just to go back to my original post and the kind of the genesis of this whole conversation, snobs versus slobs is the dynamic here. These snobby fucks are going to go on TV and explain to you slobs why you should eat your gruel paste and be happy about it, right? And none of these guys, I'm sure he makes comparable amount of money to Rachel Maddow. They sit at a nice cush office and they collect their $30,000 a day or whatever the fuck they make. And, maybe they deserve it. I'm not arguing that. People should be able to make money. I'm not anti, people making money. But it's very clear why people like this get paid the big bucks, because they get paid to spin trash into, like some kind of a cloud with a silver lining, with the intellectual silver lining. So, what Rachel Maddow does is take shit that doesn't make sense and, twist it into these intellectual knots so it kind of does make sense. She tries to explain away. The more I watched her, the more I realized what she does. She explains away the nonsensical parts of things, like the Russiagate shit. Oh, well, it doesn't matter that the proof we have that the DNC server hack was done by, a company that the Democratic Party employed and paid because XYZ did XYZ. That's the kind of world these people live in. And now the crowning jewel of this shit libbery, this shit lib fiesta, postal, I don't know if it's a fiesta, shit lib funeral, I guess is probably a better term for it here. I've been waiting for a minute to do this piece on Kimmy Jimmel, and I've got a banger for you right now because I think that this guy has just been one of the worst for a very long time. So I threw a Karen wig on him and turned him into Kimmy Jimmel, and you'll be hearing a lot more from Kimmy in the future. But this is the Polyticks debut for you right here of Kimmy Jimmel. Let's watch.
Let's be honest, it was a terrible night last night. It was a terrible night for women, for children, for the hundreds of thousands of hardworking immigrants who make this country go, for healthcare, for our climate, for science, for journalism, for justice, for free speech. It was a terrible night for poor people, for the middle class, for seniors who rely on Social Security, for our allies in Ukraine, for NATO, for the truth and democracy and decency. And it was a terrible night for everyone who voted against him. And guess what? It was a bad night for everyone who voted for him, too. You just don't realize it yet.
It was a really bad night for people who do blackface, as you can tell. It made guys who have, in recent years, like just this was not even that long ago, made guys who do blackface have to fake cry on TV. So that's about the size of the Kimmy Jimmel, as I like to call her, fiasco, and absolutely the crown jewel of all the cringe. And I'll be honest, I hoped, like I said, for a Trump victory for this very reason, just so I could watch these completely out of touch celebrities cry that their influence is slim to none.